Welcome back to Nicholas Comic Corner Classic Class Young Classics. This is episode number 27, 16, episode 20, 610. Here we're discussing issues of Batman and Detective Comics. For Batman, we're discussing issues 263 to 271. And there's not really a lot of noteworthy issues per se in these ones. A lot of these, pretty much almost all these ones, the first, I'd say from 263 to about 267, is written by Denny O'Neil. The other, of course, are by Michael Fisher, who doesn't write comics anymore. And last few done by David Reed. Now, throughout these issues, well, in the case 263, Return of the Riddler for an issue. Do some animals at a zoo. And then we have a bunch of standalone issues. And by the way, the issue 263 is Denny O'Neil, Ernie Cran. Ernie Cran, if you're curious, how many issues of this book does he do? He did from 263 to 267, skip 268, and did from 269 to pretty much up to 283. That was his last issue he did for the series. Yeah. But in the case 262 to 264, it's about dealing with basically a Daredevil for an issue. Yeah. 265, it is Batman's greatest failure. Failure to stop a criminal. Okay. By the way, this is the issue where it's not done by Danny O'Neil, it's by Michael Fisher and Rich Buckler. I did read the reason why they got into comics some more. Apparently, accusations of insanity, so he retired and became a psychiatrist. He got a PhD. Yeah. Rich, basically about these issues is the artwork. But not a lot really know where the issues here. And then we have 266, we have Return of Catwoman. Yes, Return of Catwoman. I think I discussed this issue already in Batman Arkham. Yes, I have. So I'm going to skip this one because basically I've kind of discussed it already, so moving on. Yeah, the whole thing with 267 is that people invited execution of Batman. By the way, this is by David Warren Reed and Ernie Chan is back in the artwork. It features Alfred Pennyworth and, well, Jim Gordon. Someone's trying to execute Batman. Okay, I like the premise of this issue, but the whole thing with the Green thing, that was basically just an illusion. 268, where fights desert bandits in Gotham City. And then he goes back in the artwork. I remember in the artwork. 269, it's Batman dealing with a bunch of people trying to kill a woman. 270. This one basically just has stuff happen. 271, it's basically about a ring that basically Alpha bought. And there's not really a lot here. Yeah, that's the odd thing about, with the exception of the Catwoman issue, there's not really a lot to discuss when it comes to Batman for these issues. A Batman. But I like the artwork for the issues. We give the book roughly a 8 out of 10. Now, in the case of some of these other issues, now, we're going to Detective Comics here. Now, these ones in particular, I have discussed either the opening story for, or I've discussed backup story. If there's any story featuring Hawkman, now, I did check for 450. Now, for Detective Comics, I'm kind of discussing issues 444, 440, now 443, 455 to 457. The backup stories in 458, 459, and 460 to 467. In 444, I have discussed the opening issue, but there is technically one new story in this one. And you're thinking, okay, which one is it? Is it, they have other backup stories and so on. There's one for Star Hawkins, Manhunters Across the World, Robin, Kid Eternity, Raymond. Elongated Man. He has the original story. It's mostly about him taking on a magician. That's mostly exactly what goes on here with this one. Oh yeah, and here's a little fun fact. This backup story for Elongated Man in 444. This was Mike David's very first comic he ever wrote. I do like the story here. I think he does a really good job writing Elongated Man. Yep, so skipping straight to 449 because I have technically discussed 445 to 440 already. In the case of 449, at this point, the other features have been dropped. It's just basically Batman Elongated Man. The opening story is written by Elias Miguel with Arnie Chen artwork and Luis Garcia Lopez on the inking. It's all basically to do with New Mexico stuff here, but it's not really discussed here. In the case of, well, the backup story is Elongated Man is one where basically Flash is in town helping him out, where, get this, the reason why he's here is to celebrate his birthday. Elongated Man's birthday. It's called The Mission Walking Air by Mary Strins and Dick Giordano on the artwork. 450. Elias Miguel on the writing with Walt Simonson on the interior artwork. The backup story I discussed already, so let's discuss basically the opening one for this one. It is mostly put with a guy who's terrorizing Batman. Batman terrorizing him. It's basically him trying to pin a crime on a criminal who thinks he's strike away with it. That's kind of what it is. Then we do 451, just Batman for this one. Because like I mentioned, the Robin one basically discussed if there's any Robin stories for the issues. Basically, I'm skipping it because I've already discussed already in the True Coincidence Robin book. The opening story is written by Danny O'Neill, art by Ernie Chen. It is mostly put basically Batman. It's kind of basically dealing with the terror of Batman, kind of. 452. This is kind of a two-part story of this one, where we have this group called the Crime Exchange, who only exists for these two issues. And it's mostly put the big thing about this one is like, ooh, in order to save Batman do this thing, he has to basically take this gun and shoot somebody. And that's kind of what happens in the course of two issues. It's written by David Warner, Vern Reed, art by Harry Chen. The backup story for 452 is Hawkman, which I discussed already. And then in the case of this one, it concludes as two-parter. Then we have the Elongated Man backup feature. Once again, Mike Derberg, art by Sergio Garcia. The whole thing about this one is like, yeah, people putting stuff in Ralph Dibny's pockets. That's kind of what we deal with here. And skipping over 454 because that's discussed in our trade. 455. Or Batman Battles of Vampire. The writing here is done by Bernie Wrightstein and Elias Magan, with Bernie Wrightstein all the artwork and Mike Grell. Really interesting story here. The backup is basically Hawkman, which discussed already. In the case of 456, the backup story is Elongated Man, where it's a brief two-parter where the whole thing with this one in the following issue is that briefly, for a brief period of time, Elongated Man loses his powers, gets taken captive by criminals, so his beautiful wife Sue gets the powers too, and briefly becomes basically a woman. The first one before Rita Farr does it, but actually Elongated Woman, which I really enjoyed this two-part. It was really fun. Bob Reskins does the writing here with Kurt Stoffer on the artwork. Death's Kiss, it deals with this, well, woman trying to kill Batman. Nothing but nowhere there. I've already discussed the Elongated Man already because it's just before. Now, in the case of issue 457, this one basically, the opening story for this one is noteworthy for the introduction to something that is still commonplace in Batman mythos to this day. This issue in particular is the first naming of the alley where the Waynes were killed, Crime Alley. Yeah, this is where the name comes from. Now, yes, it technically made its first appearance in Detective Comics 33 back in the 30s, but it was never named. This is the issue where it's named. And the documentary I heard about, but you mentioned this, that Denny O'Neil should get a little more credit for creating a lot of Batman that we know of today. Crime Alley, if it had been for Denny O'Neil, we would never have named Crime Alley. It's a really neat concept. That's the most northern thing about the opening story is the naming of that. But aside from that, there's not a lot of stuff here with that one. Uh, the and I already discussed backup story for that one, and Dick Giordano's the artwork for that one. 458. This one, the following one, just discussed the Man-Bat feature. Yes, Man-Bat has a feature. It is mostly put them deal with a scientist who doesn't like Man-Bat very much. The writing here is done by Martin Perisco and Pablo Marcus on the artwork. Yes, I believe he does both stories. Yes. And moving on to 460. This one, there is a Tim Trench one. The opening stories by Bob Reskins and Michael Ushin each in the artwork. Mostly put, we have a Batman dealing with a pirate villain who's still around, who was around for a long time, until like 2009. This is basically the guy's debut appearance. And apparently, this guy is the first gay Batman villain that was out at the time, years later. He is not. He actually returned. He is only here for those 3 issues, and he doesn't turn again until 526 of Batman. So yeah, Batman deals with him for 3 straight issues, while we have backup story for Tim Trench. You're thinking, who the heck is Tim Trench? Tim Trench. By the way, the story is by Pablo Marcus. Tim Trench is from the Wonder Woman comics. Yeah, he's a spy who worked with Diana Prince, who, after they wrapped up basically the Wonder Woman thing, he was around for a handful of issues, and he got dropped over here for a couple issues, and then popped up in Swamp Thing, and he died in 52. I really enjoyed the whole thing with that one. Then back to Long Game for 262, or dealing with the pirate guy for 262. Yeah, we deal with the guy's family, Captain Stingery. Elongated Man 1, all about a talking orchid. That's kind of basically what the thing with that one is. 263. The opening story, I believe I had discussed. Yes, I have. Yeah, the opening story, I had kind of discussed already for Detective. In this one and the following issue, in Tales Bound by Jerry Conway. Now, 263-267 begins a multi-part backup feature that concludes in 268, where it features the Atom, Black Canary, Green Arrow, and I believe Elongated Man, even Hawkman as well, where they all deal with the Calculator. The Am stars of Bob Reskins and Mike Groh on the artwork. The Black Canary one is covered by Laurie Reskins. Black Canary's in 464. 465 is Elongated Man. And his plight with the Calculator. Yes. But the opening story for this one, it is mostly put just Batman. Trying to get people to fool people to think who he is, who Batman's real identity really is. And then we have 466, which is has the apparent death of the Signal Man. Yes, Philip Cobb. Which he would disappear for many years. Which I discussed that one already in Tales of Batman by Lean Ween. Yes. Yeah, it's the one in there. So, yeah, it's basically 4-6 is basically Green Arrow team with Elongated Man. Take me out of the ball game. This was the artwork is by Marshall Rogers, with Bob Reskins on the writing here. 467. This is basically one featuring Hawkman, which I've discussed already. The opening story is basically a guy who claims kills Batman. A guy who poses as Batman for an issue. Yep. And then 468 is the culmination of this multi-backup story. So 465, 3, and culminates in 468. And 469 I discussed already because that's part of the Strange Separation stuff. And also, Tales Batman by Steve Eichelhart. So yeah, I just covered a lot of the comic issues, and I do mean a lot. So, that's gonna be pretty much it. Particular view. Oh, the comic issues. I found these ones to be a little more interesting. I love the backup features for this one. So the only ones basically I skipped the opening story for. There's some I have, and since I started with 444, excuse me, that's a little too far back. 444, I had just discussed the. Now some of these ones, basically, like I mentioned, I skipped over the backups for this one. Now, the opening story I discussed that was in the Lean Ween trade. Yes, basically it's most like Elongated Man, all the other characters. But these issues I found to be a lot of fun and a little more interesting than Batman, despite the fact written by Danny O'Neill. Yep. But yeah, that's particularly a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do this like button. By the way, I get the comic issues one discussed here. There's some full issues here, but not all of them. The other ones discuss full issues. So, 444, it was just Elongated Man. For 449, this one I discussed both stories in this one. 450 is just the opening story. 451, just the opening story. 452, same thing, just the opening story. 453, this one actually was the entire story. So the only ones I've so far discussed the whole story for is just so far just 449, 452. Actually no, 453. 455, just the opening story. 456, both stories. 457, both. 458, just the backup story. Same thing with 459, because I'm discussing those two at another time. 460, both. 460 and 461, both stories. 62, both. 63, just the backup story for this one. 64, just the backup. 465, both. 466, just the backup story. 67, just the opening story. Yep. So yeah, so I'll be sure to catch you all later for my Super Sentai review discussing the first of two Decorating movies. Okay, thanks to you.